I have completed the Shepherd King Duology, One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. And the most notable thing for me here was Rachel Gillig's writing, especially with One Dark Window. I loved how a lot of the chapters started with the Providence cards, with a lot of the poetic, cryptic messages that were being relayed so that you kind of can understand what you're going into when you're reading the chapter. I like that a lot. I also found the magic system quite different. I don't know how I feel exactly about the magic system itself, but it definitely is different from all the other types of reads that I've had, especially in terms of the fantasy lore. A lot of people will say this is like kind of gothic. I don't really see it that way. It's dark. Gothic, I don't know. I don't think so. I love the element of found family in here too. And that subplots of different romances happening within the story. Book 1 centered around Raven and Elspeth, and also Elspeth and Nightmare, the monster in her head, and how she kind of found him parasitic. What was also interesting to me is how the story was written as one entire family, the king and then the cousin's family, and how they're all part of the royal family. They're at it with each other because of differentiating views. I think a lot of us can relate to that, how we have family and we just don't see eye to eye. Our moral compass, how we see the world, how power affects us. I liked how Rachel was able to incorporate that in this manner, in this kingdom of blunder. And then we have book 2, which is Two Twisted Crowns, which basically talks about the two crowns of those two families. And if you know, you know. You just gotta read the book to understand. Two Twisted Crowns was different. The writing and the point of views. With One Dark Window, it was mostly first-person narration in Elspeth's view. Her sharing what she was seeing and how everything was unfolding. And then you go into Two Twisted Crowns and you've got that, and you've got different people's POVs. Now, I do wish that we kind of kept the same first-person narration across everybody else's chapters, because in Two Twisted Crowns, every chapter is now the POV of a certain character. And it would have been great if it stayed within first-person narration. However, other than the Elspeth chapters in here, everybody else was kind of third-person narration. So there was kind of somebody else narrating what was going on with that character. I would have loved the first-person narration, personally, but it was still very well done. It did kind of throw me off because there was a lot of back and forth. Because again, we're now seeing the different POVs. Because Elspeth is now in her own mind, locked away. So there was a lot of shifting narrations trying to bring to light somebody else's story. So the back and forth between the character's story was a little annoying because I'd be in a groove. For example, I'm reading a chapter about Raven's point of view and everything's going well, and then boom, stop, move into like Elm's point of view. All the stories were really beautiful. However, that annoyed me where I had to stop my train of focus and excitement to switch to somebody else's story. Book 1 to me felt seamless, how the story was being built and everything that came to be, because it was just so seamless. And then you've got Two Twisted Crowns where you're like jumping from one to the other, and maybe that's kind of why I was savoring it, because I needed to kind of make sure that I don't forget the story before I move on to the next. But the back and forth was a little annoying. I loved all the stories. I just didn't like how I had to be cut short so that I could catch up with somebody else's story. I love how Nightmare's character started to get a bit more of human traits. Now we're seeing the Shepherd King, because if in Book 1, One Dark Window, the Shepherd King was basically Nightmare. And then in Book 2, the Shepherd King was slowly appearing as the Shepherd King. I also appreciate how we were seeing more of Raven. Raven for who he is, not as a destrier, not as a highwayman, but as Raven as he is. Him showing us more of himself. And I also really liked Elm and Ion's story here. If in book 1, I felt so much for Raven and Elspeth, in book 2, I felt so much for Elm. More than anybody else. Elm and Ion, but really Renelm, because of what he had to go through. In book 1, Renelm, Prince Renelm, was very much attached to Raven because Raven sheltered him so much from Hoth and his father. However, in book 2, he's forced to be by himself, to think, to feel, and to make decisions. I don't want to give too much away. However, let me just read something that might spark a little bit of wonder and curiosity regarding Elm. Here is one from Two Twisted Crowns, the second book. This is about the nightmare specifically, talking about Elm. This is the Shepherd King. But poetry is as judicious as violence. And wouldn't it be poetic to undo the ruins from within? To take the legacy of pain and watch one of their own grind it under his heel. To carve the way for a prince who never used the scythe for violence. He has looked pain in the eye and refused to let it make a monster of him. Elm has been through a lot. I feel for him so much. And I'm so happy with what he ended up getting and how his story came to be. I love this is a newfound family, found within family type of story. And I'm happy for Raven because he was finally able to get to the point where he feels okay to not always have to wear a mask. In book 1, when I was reading it, how Elspeth and Raven met and how he was just so nothing. And that scene where they were believe in the garden or in the mist, and how Raven finally confessed how he felt about Elspeth and even the things he had imagined even upon their first meet. I'm like, I would have never guessed given how stone-hard his feelings and his character was as written in the book. Book 2 then allowed us to see Raven outside of that. I mean, I love Raven's character before and I love him even more now. Same with Elm. And I feel for the Shepherd King because he kind of felt that Elspeth was the daughter he wished he could care for because of how he took care of his actual family. Overall, this duology was a very good read. It was something, though, that I had to take my time to read, and so I could really feel the character stories. One Dark Window, dark but beautiful, poetic but cryptic. Two Twisted Crowns, more adventure, more fast-paced things, but also a lot of back and forth. But you definitely get more of the character story in Two Twisted Crowns. One Dark Window was building you up, making you understand how everything is going to unfold, and Two Twisted Crowns gave it to you. Gave you everybody's point of views, gave you the characters, gave you all the feels and all the emotions, all the heartbreak, and all the possibilities running amok at the beginning of the book as you're reading throughout the story. I love a good monster in the head story, and I love it even more when the monster in our head accepts us and we accept it. Living with a life that is dealt with you, just like the deck of cards dealt to them in the story. So the Shepherd King Duology, absolutely enjoyed reading. If you've read either books, how do you feel after reading it? And if you haven't read it and are looking to read it, if you're interested in the dark kingdom, isolated because of magic that beholds upon them, newfound family with a lot of romance in it as well, different types of romances from different characters, and like seeing how characters unfold in the story from how they started to how they are at the end of it, then you might really like this. Well, I truly enjoyed it, and I hope that if you do give it a go, that you enjoy it as well. If you want to chat about either stories, then I'd love to have a discussion with you guys over on Fable, in the book club, or even on Threads or on Instagram. I'm typically posting a lot of book stuff on Threads, like more real-time stuff. And on Instagram, mostly on stories. Want to continue the discussion because you have a lot to say about either of the two? Then let's talk. I'd love to cozy up and have a discussion with you. If you stayed on till the very end of this, I truly appreciate it, and I hope to see you on the next one.